So I'm Madison, and for me, my OCD started when I was 6 years old. Before this time, things were going great. I was getting good grades in school, I was liked by my friends and family, and I didn't really have any big dilemmas in the world. But then something started to change. I started to feel more different, and I wasn't satisfied with being read a story only once. I began to ask more questions, like, why were the kids walking in the forest? What time of day were the kids walking in the forest? What shade of green were the leaves the kids were walking next to on the trees in the forest? But most noticeable was my fear of dirt and germs. I wouldn't touch doorknobs because other people did, and the person before could have infected it. And I would wash my hands over and over again until they would crack and bleed. But for some reason, I didn't want my parents to know, so I kept it hidden. But eventually, my parents noticed my dry, bleeding, and cracking hands. So, and my dad asked me if I was afraid of dirt or germs, and I told them I wasn't. But things continued happening, and my parents got a little bit more worried for me, because one day when my dad found me in my room, I was in tears because I couldn't touch the doorknob. And so that's when things got more serious. But there's no place for my parents to turn, because there was no one locally who specialized in childhood OCD. And so there's no one, my parents, they started doing their own research. And eventually they found someone that didn't specialize in childhood OCD, but gave my parents suggestions weekly. All while my OCD got stronger, and I couldn't walk barefoot across the kitchen floor, or I couldn't touch wood because I was really afraid of splinters. But when my parents came home from the doctor, they told me that the thing that was inside my brain was the trickster. Not OCD, but the trickster. And the trickster was always trying to trick me into doing things I really don't want to do. And his voice was really loud. The way to quiet his voice down was to do exposure therapy, which is the opposite of what OCD is telling me to do. So I had to walk barefoot across the kitchen floor, rub my hands on wood, and my parents had me garden and told me to wait to wash my hands. And another thing that helped me was my dad wrote a book. It was called Gotta Wash My Hands. And it was about a girl that wasn't me, but did a lot of the similar things that I did, and I kind of got to see it from an outside point of view. So I kind of got to say, like, oh, I do that sometimes. Oh, but I don't do it that much. I think you should do this instead. I remember one day at dinner when my dad told me to lick the kitchen table to get over one of my fears. I appreciate my dad trying to help me beat the trickster, but to lick the kitchen table? That's just plain gross. But he's got me this far with the trickster, so I just decided to do it anyway. The next day at dinner, I wanted to show my dad how far I've come. And I said, hey, Daddy, look. And I ran my tongue like 6 inches across the table. Proud that I'd beaten the trickster, I didn't really notice the pepper I'd spilt on the table that then collected on my tongue. Throughout this time, my dad realized he too was a victim of OCD. It was harder for him as a child, but lessened as an adult. And my grandma and great-grandma had it also. This was a really tough time for me in my life, but with the help of my parents and exposure therapy, I was able to get my OCD in check. And now I can recognize it a lot quicker and can quiet his voice down quicker.